I don't even know how to really say this, but you know, we've sort of followed you out of Chicago, and you've done great things, and you come back to Chicago, which I love. And now I find out that you opened a place in LA called
Taste Chicago.
And what do you have there?
We got it all. We got the Italian beef sandwiches, we got deep dish pizza, you got your Polish, you got your ribs, you got your Chicago dogs.
You are truly representing.
Oh,
I love
yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of your favorite places in Chicago?
Well, I mean, like Mr. Beef on Orleans, the original Mr.
Love
Beef
it.
on Orleans is one of my favorite beef places. There's another one, there's a Mr. Beef actually in Berwyn that's good.
Yeah.
There's a Mickey's in Bellwood that's good. I mean, everybody's got their
Nice.
own spots. You know, and the pizza, the deep dish, you know, Lou Malnati's is good. Uno's Duets are good, you know.
Did you grow up around, I mean, what areas did you
I grew up
spend
on the
most-
west side of the city. I grew up on the Garfield Park area.
Yep.
And then for high school, we moved out to Cicero. And that's where I went to Morton East High School in Cicero.
What do you think about Chicago being the United States representative of potentially having the Olympics in 2016?
You know what? It's actually it really is the ideal choice, and part of the reason I say that is I've done a fairly extensive traveling around the world. I mean, I've been fortunate in my line of work. I've done films all over Europe and Russia, you know, Australia. I've traveled a good amount, and one thing I have found more than a few times, I'll talk to people from these other countries. And very often they'll confide in me if we get into these discussions about America. They will talk about, oh, New York, I love New York, oh, Los Angeles, I love New York. But when they'll mention Chicago, if they'd had a chance to go, they'd say, Chicago. Chicago is really America. Chicago is the city that to them personifies what the real soul of America is. In other words, New York's an anomaly. I mean, New York is New York. New York's the capital of the world in many ways. Los Angeles is an anomaly. I mean, it's La La Land. It's that.
Right.
It has a strong identity.
Yet those are two places that funnel quite a bit of the image of what we put out as being American, but
Absolutely.
But in reality,
but in terms of the personality
Yeah.
of America, in other words, what city would best define in a way what's the personality of this country? I think it makes sense that you go to the Midwest and ultimately you go to the biggest city in the Midwest. And up in Chicago, I think really is a perfect example of that. In other words, the personality of New York, and it's not, and I don't mean it as an insult or a put down. It's not the personality of this country. The personality of Los Angeles is not the personality of this country. But I think Chicago best, in a way, exemplifies what the real personality is of the people of this country are. It's more that Midwestern kind of, you know, tell us the truth and we'll give you the truth back.
what do you think Americans in general will benefit from by being the host of this international event? Even Chicagoans, having all these different cultures integrated for those weeks upon weeks.
Well, if you think about it, it's what America is, first of all. More so than any other country on this planet, I think the United States of America personifies what the Olympics are about. The Olympics are the drawing together of all nations that compete under one umbrella, and for that moment in time, all these nations come together.
The last question, when you get to that point, or we all get to the point where the Olympics are in Chicago and the tickets are all sort of spread out, which ticket are you going to go for? What game do you need to see? Where do you see yourself most enjoying the sport front row?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've always been a sucker for the track and field, and especially for the, you know what I like? I like the 400 meter and 800 meter relays, because I always have this, so often, especially the women relay team, usually, for the most part, usually these four girls are just kind of joking around, and all of a sudden they get down in the blocks, and then bang,
Yeah.
and it's over like in a heartbeat.
What's that going to be like to see in person?
Well, that's what I mean. So I mean, if I could pick one event, I mean, it would just be to see the, because to me that personifies what it's all about. Some like these young people who've worked very hard their whole life, and yet do it with a spirit of joy and happiness, and you know, they get it. In other words, the joy of sport.
Well, thank you for continually representing, being a great guy.
My pleasure. Thank you.